The first time Amaka closed her eyes and decided not to open them again, her heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would tear through her chest. She lay flat on the bed, stiff and silent, her eyelashes resting gently against her cheeks. The ceiling fan above her creaked as it turned, pushing warm Lagos air around the room. Outside, the low hum of their neighbor's generator mixed with distant horns and street noise. Life was moving normally for everyone else. But inside that small two-bedroom apartment in Suralere, something irreversible was beginning. "Amaka?" Kunle called. His voice floated in from the sitting room, calm and careless, the way it always sounded when he thought everything was fine. Amaka didn't respond. "Amaka?" He stepped into the bedroom this time. "Why are you still sleeping? It's past 7. Still, she didn't move. Kunle frowned and walked closer to the bed. He touched her arm. It was warm. "Amaka, wake up." "Nothing." A thin line of fear crawled into his voice. "Amaka?" He shook her gently at first. Then harder. Her body remained limp, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and steady. Inside, she was screaming at herself to stay calm, to remain still, to commit fully to what she had decided. Kunle panicked. "Jesus Christ," he shouted. "Amaka! Open your eyes." He splashed water on her face from the plastic bottle on the table. Some of it ran down her neck. She didn't flinch. By now, his hands were trembling. "Help! Somebody help me!" Kunle yelled as he rushed outside, shouting her name at the top of his voice. Within minutes, neighbors rushed in. One woman prayed loudly in tongues. Another slapped Amaka's palm repeatedly. "Maybe she fainted," someone said. "Check her eyes," another added. Amaka felt fingers lifting her eyelids, light flashing briefly. She forced herself not to blink. An hour later, she was in a hospital bed. Doctors moved around her, voices low and serious. Kunle stood at the foot of the bed, sweat soaking his shirt, his phone pressed to his ear as he explained everything to his mother in rushed Yoruba. "She just collapsed," he said. "I don't know what happened." Amaka listened. 3 days later, the verdict came. "Sudden loss of vision," the doctor said carefully. "It could be trauma-related. Psychological shock. We can't be sure yet." Kunle swallowed hard. "So, she's blind?" "For now," the doctor replied. "We'll observe." Kunle nodded slowly. Then he asked the question that sliced through Amaka's chest like a blade. "How much will treatment cost?" That was when she knew. Not because he didn't cry. Not because he didn't pray. But because fear of money came before fear of losing her. 2 weeks earlier, Amaka had still believed her marriage was safe. She and Kunle had been married for 4 years. No children yet, but hope was still alive. They laughed together. They shared late-night meals and Sunday outings. At least, that was what she thought. That night, she had gone to bed early with a headache. Kunle was outside on the balcony, his voice low. She wasn't trying to listen, but some words drifted in. "I told you already," Kunle said. "She doesn't suspect anything." Amaka opened her eyes in the dark. "Just be patient," he continued. "I'm handling it." A woman laughed softly on the other end of the line. Not loud. Not careless. Intimate. Amaka's stomach twisted. When Kunle returned to the room, she pretended to be asleep. The next morning, she didn't ask questions. Nigerian women knew that questions without proof only invited lies and insults. Instead, she watched. She noticed how Kunle started guarding his phone like it contained gold. How he changed his password. How money disappeared from their joint account without explanation. How he suddenly complained that she asked for too much. Then came the late nights. "I'm closing late," he would say. Traffic was mad. Work stress. Excuses stacked upon excuses. The final push came during a visit to her aunt, a nurse, when Amaka broke down and told her everything. Her aunt listened quietly, then sighed. "Men reveal their true hearts when convenience disappears," she said. "If you want to know who he really is, remove what benefits him." It sounded crazy. Dangerous. But the seed was planted. Kunle brought Amaka home from the hospital like a man carrying a burden he didn't ask for. At first, he tried. He held her hand when she walked. Fed her soup carefully. Spoke softly in front of neighbors. "God will heal you," he said in public. People praised him. But behind closed doors, his patience thinned like cheap cloth. "Why are you calling me again?" he snapped one afternoon. "Didn't I put the cup on the table?" "I'm sorry," Amaka whispered. Money became his favorite weapon. "Do you think money grows on trees?" he shouted one night. "Everything is now about hospital, hospital, hospital." He started sleeping out. Sometimes, he wouldn't come home at all. One evening, Amaka heard him on the phone again. "I didn't marry a blind woman," Kunle said bitterly. "This is not the life I planned." A woman laughed on the other end. "Then leave her," she said softly. Kunle sighed. "I'm thinking about it." Amaka's chest tightened. Thinking about what? That night, he brought food she couldn't eat. When she refused, he slammed the plate on the table. "You're stressing me," he yelled. "Everything is now about you." Amaka flinched. In that moment, she understood something terrifying. Her test was working. But she was no longer sure she was ready for the truth it was about to reveal. And somewhere in the shadows of that house, Kunle was already planning his next move. Blindness sharpened Amaka's other senses in ways she never imagined. When you can no longer rely on your eyes, every sound carries meaning. Every pause speaks. Every breath tells a story. She learned the rhythm of the house again, this time from the dark. She knew when Kunle was irritated by the way his footsteps dragged across the tiles. She knew when he was pretending to be kind because his voice would rise slightly, too sweet, too forced. She knew when he was lying because he stopped calling her by her pet name. Amaka disappeared. It became Amaka. Then, eventually, silence. At first, Kunle still tried to look like a good husband in front of people. He escorted her to church. He held her elbow gently when neighbors were around. But the moment the door closed, his hands dropped away like she was no longer his responsibility. One morning, she overheard him speaking to his friend on the phone. "My brother, this thing is not easy," Kunle said, frustration thick in his voice. "I didn't plan for this kind of marriage." The friend laughed. "But she's your wife now." Kunle scoffed. "Wife or not, I can't kill myself." Those words stayed with Amaka the whole day. By the second week, Kunle introduced a new solution. "We need help," he announced one evening. "Someone to assist you when I'm not around." Amaka sat quietly on the couch, her dark glasses covering eyes that saw more than he knew. "Okay," she said softly. The next day, Tosin arrived. She was young, too young. Her voice was confident, almost playful. The kind of confidence that came from knowing you were wanted. "Good afternoon, Auntie," Tosin said politely. "Auntie." The word landed like an insult disguised as respect. "Good afternoon," Amaka replied calmly. From the very first day, Tosin took over the house like it already belonged to her. She rearranged the kitchen, changed the sitting room curtains, spoke to Kunle with familiarity that made Amaka's stomach twist. "Kunle, where did you keep the blender?" Tosin asked casually. "In the top cabinet," he replied without hesitation. Amaka noticed. He didn't even think before answering. At night, when Kunle thought Amaka was asleep, she heard them whispering in the kitchen. "She's not completely blind," Tosin said one night. "Sometimes, it feels like she's watching." Kunle laughed. "Even if she is pretending, I don't care anymore. I'm tired. Tired. Of her." Amaka turned her face into the pillow and let silent tears soak the fabric. But instead of stopping the test, she leaned into it. She became more helpless. She asked Kunle to help her find things that were right beside her. She called his name repeatedly at night. She dropped plates. She bumped into furniture. The house became tense. Tosin's patience wore thin. "Must you always call me?" Tosin snapped one afternoon. "Can't you sit in one place?" "I'm sorry," Amaka said quietly. Kunle exploded that night. "I'm done," he shouted. "I can't breathe in this house again." He paced the sitting room like a trapped animal. "Everything is now about you. Your blindness. Your weakness." Amaka sat still. "I didn't plan for this life." Kunle continued. "I have dreams. I have plans." He grabbed his car keys. "I'm not sleeping here tonight." The door slammed behind him. Minutes later, Tosin followed. The house went silent. Amaka sat alone in the darkness, her heart racing. For the first time since she started the test, fear outweighed curiosity. What if she had gone too far? That was when her phone vibrated. Once. She froze. Another vibration. Her hand shook as she unlocked the phone. A message from an unknown number. "Your husband is planning to declare you mentally unfit." Her breath caught. Another message followed immediately. "He wants to take the house and your savings." Amaka felt cold all over. She typed with trembling fingers. "Who is this?" The reply came quickly. "Someone who once pretended not to see, until it almost killed her." Amaka's heart pounded painfully. The sender sent one final message. "Open your eyes soon. Love has turned into strategy." Amaka dropped the phone. This was no longer a test of love. It was survival. The next morning, Kunle returned cheerful, humming to himself. He brought bread and tea like nothing had happened. "We need to talk," he said calmly. Her stomach tightened. "I've spoken to a lawyer," Kunle continued. "Just to understand our options." "Options?" Amaka asked softly. "In case things get worse," he replied smoothly. "We need to be realistic." Realistic. Later that day, she overheard Kunle on the phone again. "Yes," he said quietly. "Once she's declared unstable, everything becomes easier." Amaka's nails dug into her palms. That night, lying alone in bed, she made a decision. She would end the test. But not privately. Not quietly. If Kunle wanted to destroy her in the open, then the truth would also come out in the open. She smiled faintly in the darkness. The blind had seen enough. And soon, everyone else would too. But when Amaka finally opened her eyes, would the truth save her, or shatter everything beyond repair? The morning Kunle called for a family meeting, Amaka knew the end had come. She felt it in the air. Kunle was unusually calm. He woke early, ironed his shirt carefully, and even greeted her politely. "Good morning," he said, his voice controlled. "Good morning," Amaka replied softly. He helped her dress, guiding her hands like a patient teacher. To anyone watching, he looked like a devoted husband. But inside his touch was empty, mechanical. "People will come later today," he said. "My mother. My brothers. The pastor." Amaka nodded slowly. "Okay." She sat quietly on the couch afterward, her dark glasses resting on her face, listening as Kunle arranged chairs and rehearsed his words under his breath. Around noon, they began to arrive. Kunle's mother came first, her wrapper tied tightly, her face already set in worry. His elder brother followed, then the younger one. The pastor arrived last, Bible tucked under his arm. They all greeted Amaka with pity. "Sorry, my daughter," Kunle's mother said. "God will do it." "Amen," Amaka replied calmly. They settled into their seats. Kunle stood in the middle of the room like a man about to deliver a speech. "I called everyone today because my wife's condition has become too much for me alone," he began. "I've tried my best." Amaka kept her head bowed. "She can't see. She can't function properly. Sometimes, she behaves strangely," Kunle added carefully. His mother frowned. "Strangely how?" "She forgets things. She calls at odd times. She's emotionally unstable," Kunle replied smoothly. "I'm worried for my safety." Amaka's fingers trembled slightly, but she stayed silent. The pastor cleared his throat. "Kunle, sickness is not a crime." "I know, sir," Kunle said quickly. "But I didn't sign up to be a full-time caregiver. I think it's best she's taken somewhere she can get proper help." The room filled with murmurs. "A home?" one of his brothers asked. Kunle nodded. "Yes. Somewhere professionals can handle her." Kunle's mother shifted uncomfortably. "She's blind, not mad." Kunle sighed deeply, as if tired of explaining. "Mama, you don't live with her." That was when Amaka stood up. Slowly. The room fell quiet. She reached for her glasses and removed them. Then she opened her eyes. Fully. Clearly. Gasps filled the room like a sudden wind. Kunle froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Amaka," his mother whispered. "I can see," Amaka said calmly. "I've been seeing." Kunle staggered backward, almost tripping over a chair. This is madness." "No," Amaka replied. "This is truth." She turned toward the pastor. "I pretended to be blind to test my husband's heart." Kunle shouted, "She's lying. She's confused." Amaka picked up her phone from the table. "I have recordings." She pressed play. Kunle's voice filled the room. "I didn't marry a blind woman. Once she's declared unstable, everything becomes easier." Silence followed. Kunle's brother stared at him. "Is this your voice?" Kunle's mother covered her mouth, eyes wide with shock. Amaka turned slowly toward Tosin, who stood frozen near the wall, eyes darting nervously. "And you," Amaka said quietly, "you can leave my house." Tosin opened her mouth, then closed it again. She picked up her bag and rushed out without a word. Kunle dropped into a chair, his strength gone. "I wanted to know who I married," Amaka continued, her voice steady but heavy with pain. "When I lost my usefulness to him, he lost his love." She faced Kunle directly. "You didn't just betray me. You planned to destroy me." Kunle looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "I was scared," he whispered. "I didn't know what to do." Amaka nodded slowly. Fear shows character. The meeting ended in chaos. Kunle's family left in shame. The pastor shook his head sadly. Kunle's mother wept and begged Amaka for forgiveness. But some things could not be undone. The divorce was quiet but swift. Kunle lost his job shortly after when the story reached his workplace. Friends avoided him. His name became a warning whispered among men. Amaka moved out. Months later, she sat in her new apartment, sunlight pouring through wide windows. The walls were bare, but the air was peaceful. She had forgiven Kunle, not because he deserved it, but because carrying anger was heavier than blindness. One evening, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for opening your eyes." Amaka smiled softly. Some tests reveal love. Others reveal monsters. And sometimes, pretending to be blind is the only way to truly see.